wasn't even for a church service. I got into songwriting because I wanted to talk to God. I needed to talk to God. You know, I was 7 years old and my dad took his own life, and suddenly didn't have a dad around, and then my mum remarried, and this guy was abusive and ended up going to jail, and my teenage years were pretty turbulent. But the safe place for me was worship songs. You know, we know the throne room of God is a place of reverence, but it's also a place of refuge. It's a place where, when the rest of the world seems so likely to fail or fade, or seems so fragile and fractious, the throne room of God is somewhere you can go where everything's the same, everything's stable, everything's just as steadfast as it was. And when everything else is breaking and shaking, the throne room of God is somewhere that is unshakable. So it's a good place to hang out, right? When you're reading some crazy news, or you're having a crazy day, or you've got some tough stuff going on with your family or friends, or your finances, whatever it is, the throne room of God is a great place to go and hang out, because in that place, it's dependable, you know. And for me, singing these worship songs at church in those turbulent years, it was so reassuring. That was the word I used. It reassured me about life. I can get through this. It reassured me, and it's so stabilizing. I think it's a bit like this. If you're sitting in the back, maybe trying to read a book, you're been driven somewhere. So sometimes you can get nauseous, and the reason is because your senses start to conflict with each other. So you have your eyes are trying to tell you you're staying still. You're trying to concentrate on the page. Your ear balance canal is contradicting that. It's saying, no, actually you're moving around, you're being jiggled around all over the place right now. And that sense of conflict can cause nausea, can cause like a sense of sickness, because you've got two things conflicting. And one thing you can do is put the window down, put your hand out into the fast-moving air. And what you do is, when you do that, is you back up what is actually true. You give further evidence, further weight to what's actually true. Oh, I am actually moving really fast right now. And quite often that can clear up the sense of nausea. It can take away the sense of feeling sick, because you've given further evidence, further weight to the actual truth. That's what our songs can do when we get it right. You know, some people are, yeah, I know God's good, yeah, I know He's good, and then something hits them in life, something devastating, something a little too hard to comprehend, or maybe a problem that just won't go away and they can't see the end to it. And in those moments, we can start to feel spiritually nauseous. Because, like, I get that God's good, yeah, and I thought He was powerful. What the heck's going on here? Why is my life so hard right now? And what you have to do in those moments to get spiritually well again and feel good, you have to give further evidence, further weight to the actual truth. Wait a minute, let me read scripture. Let me remind myself of the faithfulness of God. Let me see how God always has a plan, and no plan of His can be thwarted. Let me see how He saves quite often at the last minute, yeah, but He makes a plan. And let me look back through my own life. And you know what? Songs are a great way of delivering that further evidence. They're a great way of giving us that extra weight to back up what is actually true. Wait, yeah, this hurts so much. This is so confusing. But God is good. I know He's good. God is in command. I know He's in command. I know He's sovereign over my life. And what songs can do, there's such a brilliant way, when they're based on truth, it's such a brilliant way of bringing that further evidence into our lives, that further weight. And that's what it did for me in my teenage years. I had some situations which were not going away anytime soon. I had some things that seemed to be telling me God is not good. But I knew enough through the Bible and through those worship songs to keep reminding myself, no, He is good. I just got to hang in there. He is good. I'm going to see the goodness of God in the land of the living. You know, the world has songs that try to do that, trying to, you know, maybe some cliches, or, you know, something good's going to happen, or there's going to be a silver lining, you know. There can be some merit to that. But we have something so astoundingly more powerful than that. And I said, you know, oh, today we're not going to be talking about absolute truth, we're talking about songwriting. Well, this is the part that is absolute truth. like these unshakable, unchanging truths of God, if you can get those into your songs in a way that's biblical, relevant, poetic, congregational, you can get those into people's bloodstream real quick, and they'll keep showing up. So they'll be in the hospital room, and the song will come to mind that they've been singing at church for the last few months, and it's with them, it's present with them. Maybe in that moment they may or may not be remembering the pastor's sermon, they might do, but I think they're very likely to bring a song to mind, and that song becomes the soundtrack to help them navigate that moment. And so this is why I care about it so much. We have to reply to the glory of God. Why? How could you be silent? But secondly, because when we do it and we get it right and we fill our songs with truth, they can be so brilliantly impacting and compelling in our lives. We're going to look today about how some ways we can do that, and then, like I said, we have some Q&A, so definitely get some questions ready on all that stuff. And I've hardly ever heard a terrible song. I don't know if you've ever heard a terrible worship song. You think, like, hear it, you go, that's actually terrible. I've seen a few. You see a few lazy ones. Died for me, upon a tree, at Calvary, when he was 33. Okay, you try a bit harder. I mean, I had someone. We did an album once where we had people send songs in from the youth movement we were part of, and even the ones that weren't that good, often you could hear something good in it. You could hear the heart of God in it, or there was an element of truth in it. They weren't a complete waste of time. We took time to work on that thing. Even before we sat down at the piano or got a guitar out, we already were immersed in the theme. We'd read a book about it. We'd listened to a couple of sermons about it. We'd Bible studied it. We'd had conversations on it. And then we sit down and we're contending for that thing and try and spend some good time making sure it's as polished as it can be and every section feels strong and all those kind of things that you do. And then maybe just a couple of weeks to review, and then you go in session 2 and everything looks a bit different now because it's 2 weeks on. You can see a bit more clearly what is actually good in the song, what actually needs some further attention. And then maybe you bring someone else in, you say, hey, help me contend for this. What's your perspective? And after a while, that song might be ready, and there's a good chance that song is going to be sturdier and last longer and make more of a difference because you contended for it and you didn't rush it. And I think that's something to think about. A lot of this is about catching a vision for a song. So one thing I would like to say to you today, maybe one of the main things, is like, be a visionary songwriter. Don't just be a songwriter, sit down, see what comes to me today. Sometimes that can be a nice thing to do. Other times it's really putting a lot of pressure on yourself. It's a lot less pressure to sit down and think, I already know what I want to talk about. And my heart's already in this. I already know some of the direction I'd like to take this. That takes a lot of pressure off. But it's also going to be better for you in terms of writing a good song and a helpful song. Being a visionary songwriter, catching a vision for the song. Like there was this band REM, I guess in the 80s and 90s. This guy Michael Stipe from REM, he said, someone asked him to describe his songwriting process, and he said, vomiting whatever came to me like a cat with a hairball. And he was basically like, that's how his songwriting functioned. We can't afford to do that in the church. We've got to be more visionary than that. There's a time to sit down and write and have a really clear idea of where you want that song to go. And what happens is if you have a vision for the song, then it informs a lot of the choices that you make along the way. So again, you're making it a little bit easier for yourself. Because you sometimes you're not going round and round and roundabout. Oh, which you have roundabouts out here? Yeah. No? Yes? Yeah. which exit should I take? Sometimes you're like, it's definitely this exit, because I know what this song is about. I know what I want the song to be, so I know that it's this exit. And it'll help you answer the questions. What do I want this song to say? Who is this song for? Who's going to be singing this song? Do I want the song to teach truth? Do I want the song to help people sing and respond to that truth? Some of those questions become very easy to answer if you have a vision for your song. I'll give you an example. I wrote a song one time for a family who lost their baby in childbirth. And actually, I was in England at the time. I was actually in Scotland, and they were in America. So time zone wise, it was in my favour to even write that song on that day. So I found the news in the morning, and then because they were a lot of hours behind, I actually managed to deliver a finished demo to the family that day. Thinking like, even if this song isn't exactly what, I don't know if the song will land well, but I know that they'll feel loved if I send it today. I know it's like a way I can be present and say, hey, we're thinking of you. And that's, by the way, a good way to exercise your gift. Don't just exercise your gift for crowds and congregations. Exercise your gift for individuals too, and for families, and for, So, but the point is that day, I wrote that song with a friend really fast. And we definitely weren't rushing, but it was just coming together really quickly. And when I was thinking about it afterwards, I thought, I know why that was. It was because I knew who that song was going to, not even just what kind of person, I actually knew the family, the faces that song was going to. And I knew what I wanted that song to be about, I knew what that song was trying to achieve. And so because of all those reasons, it informed the decisions very easily along the way. Obviously we had some inspiration as well, but it made it very focused, it was laser focused. So it wasn't just trying to, sometimes we're just writing for the air, and it's not helpful. Sometimes even if you're writing a congregation song, it's good to have a person in mind. Think, okay, we're writing a song today on hope, and I know this person right now is really struggling with that, and what would they want to hear? Would this, if I say it that way, would that connect with them? Would it resonate with them? Is that just the way I would say it, or would that help other people? And that's a great thing, by the way, to try and write songs in a way where you are being passionate about your own experience, but you're not being so specific that other people can't attach their own stories to it. You want to write in a way where it's, you're not removed from it, you're very much present in it, and it's something you would say, and it's the overflow of your heart. You're not making it so detailed and specific that other people couldn't attach their own stories to it. So you want to do that. Anyway, writing that song that day, and it landed really well with the family, but it taught me a lesson, like the focus side of it. I know I had a vision for that song, and I knew who it was going to, and that really helped me write it. Around these churches, so I was on sabbatical at the time, and the preachers were smashing it. They were just speaking some great truth into the moment, and it was really good. But I was thinking, where are our worship songs? We don't seem to have a vocabulary to sing the songs we always sing. There's this national tragedy. People are flocking to church. Some of these congregations are double the size they normally would be. Why are we just singing the same stuff? That doesn't feel relevant, but also doesn't feel biblical. The Psalms are full of lament. They usually miss, and says 70% of the content of the Psalms is lament. So it felt like, if it's biblical and relevant, why are we just singing like nothing's just happened? And that was why, one big trigger point for writing Blessed Be Your Name. And so these things are really helpful. The hymn writers did it a lot as well. Like Charles Wesley, like, without passion, your song's going to be boring. It's not going to feel authentic. Jesus said, out of the overflow of the heart, the mouth speaks. And it's the same with songwriting, right? And again, back to U2, Bono said, about songwriting. You can have 1,000 ideas, but without emotion, it's just an essay. You can have 1,000 ideas, but without emotion, it's just an essay. We want these things to sound passionate and emotional and alive, and like we meant it when we wrote it. We don't want to write essays. We want there to be a lot of truth in there, for sure, but we also want emotion and passion to accompany that truth. And by the way, that would be the Psalms, right? The Psalms say some very important, true things about God, but they never say it in a half-hearted way. Have you noticed that? The Psalms, they're always full-on, intense. A guy called John Piper said, if you write or paint or use art in any way to describe God in a boring way, that's probably a sin. Like your song can't sound lame, limp, half-hearted. It has to. If you're talking about God, you should sound like there should be an intensity to it. And the Psalms are so intense, aren't they? I mean, they're exploding in every direction emotionally. Like sometimes it's desperation, pain and confusion, and other times it's joy and celebration, but they always have some intensity to them. So passion and precision are exploding with praise and all sorts of other responses towards God, but there's a skill to it, there's a poetry, there's a sense of craft about the whole thing. And by the way, there can be a curve in this passion and precision thing. We all start off writing because we have passion. And at the beginning, we don't probably have much precision because we haven't done this before. And as we go, precision starts to catch up, we're still passionate. I don't know if you notice in people's music careers, quite often, like the first album might be the best thing they've ever done, maybe the second one's pretty great, then there'll be a little drop off sometimes. Then third, fourth, it's still good music, it's not as compelling as the beginning. And my perspective is that's because they've probably got more precision than they ever had, but the passion's dropped off. They're not as compelled in their writing as they were right at the beginning. And funny enough, sometimes in the pop world, that's because life's become a lot more comfortable for them. Sometimes people are writing these amazing first albums because there's a lot of tension in their life, and then they get to the third one, now they're living in a really nice house and got rid of all the people in their life. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so sometimes you can see that dropping off, and the key is we want to keep those things both, want to keep learning and growing as songwriters, and at the same time make sure that the passion doesn't take a dip. What we're trying to do is we're trying to write a universal theme in a unique way. So in terms of precision, right, we've got to start learning some of the craft, and one of the main things is run everything through that filter. Is this a universal theme in a unique way? Is this something that's biblical, that we should sing about, that it's important to sing about, that's relevant to people's lives? But are we singing about it in a unique way? Are we finding a fresh way, melodically or lyrically or vibe-wise or whatever it is? Are we finding a fresh way to sing about that? Some of the very best songs you hear, that's exactly what they do. It's unlikely to be a song about a theme you've never heard before, right? You sing Holy Forever over here, yeah? Holy Forever, it's a big song in America and even right now. The people who wrote that, they didn't sing about anything new. It's about a theme we've sung about lots of times, but they found a new way into it. Or a song that was big in America a few years ago was called Reckless Love. It was about the love of God and the kind of, that's not new to any of us, but he found a new way into that theme. And that's what it's about. It's about, it's like taking the familiar, but making sure it has something about it that's unfamiliar. And it might be a phrase in the song, or it might be the title, or it might be the fact that this song doesn't have the normal structure. It doesn't go verse, chorus, bridge. It's like A, B, and C section. They're all kind of interchangeable, and you can't really tell which one's the chorus. Have you noticed that sometimes with a song? So there's little things you can learn along the way, but all of your songs, you're trying to think, what is the unique factor to this song? The hymn writers were brilliant at this. Lyrically, the hymn writers were smashing it. They were writing so many songs about the cross, but so many different angles and windows onto the cross. Like this guy William Cooper, it spells C-O-W-P-E-R, but pronounced Cooper. There is a fountain filled with blood, drawn from Emmanuel's veins, and sinners plunged beneath that flood with all their guilty stains. The dying thief rejoiced to see that fountain in his day, and there may I, though vile as he, wash all my sins away. So he's basically saying, hey, there was a couple of criminals next to Jesus, and we all knew they were guilty of, what their punishment. Wait a minute, I'm as guilty as they are, actually, and I need that saving flow drawn from Emmanuel's veins just as much as they did. And it's given us a little window onto the same theme we've sung about time and time again. It's given us a little fresh way to enter into it. And lyrically, that probably would be one of the best things you could ever do in a song. If you could find a unique way to enter into a universal theme, that could be such a special thing. I want all your songs to be about me and Jesus here and now. Right? It's just me, I'm in my room, I'm singing to you, Jesus, and everything contained in the song is about me and you right here and now. They're a nice kind of song, but if that's all you're ever singing about, that's problematic. But actually, even from a crafting point of view, if you start to give some timeline to the song, you really open things up. You give some depth to it. So, sometimes in your song, you can make sure you have the past, the present, and the future in the song. Such a simple little device that takes you immediately into some depth. It takes you into interest, helps you know where you're going to go in each verse, right? So you don't just repeat what happened in the first verse. So the three words will be reenactment, realization, and anticipation. So reenactment, we're telling the old story. Realization, you're saying what that story means for me here today is actually relevant to my life here today, that story. And then that's not even the end of the story. Anticipation, there's good stuff coming up ahead. And this is a really biblical thing to do because we worship the God of yesterday, today, and forever. So really cool if we're singing songs that aren't just about God today, right? But this song's actually got the God of yesterday, the God of today, the God of forever. He's the one who was, He's the one who is, and He is the one who is to come. So we need to reflect that in our songs. And you think, that sounds complicated. It doesn't have to be complicated. There's an old song from the 70s, and it's called There Is a Redeemer, written by Melody Green. Verse 1, there is a Redeemer, Jesus, God's only Son, precious Lamb of God, Messiah, Holy. That's reenactment, telling the old story. Verse 2, realization. Jesus, my Redeemer. Okay, so this has got relevance for me today. Jesus, this thing happened. Jesus was the Redeemer. But actually, this shows up in my life today. So we've now done the realization. But it's not even the end of the story. Verse 3, when I stand in glory, I will see His face. There I'll serve my King forever in that holy place. That is a really simple song, but it's not shallow. Simple but not shallow, right? There's nothing complicated about that song. But actually, it shows you the God of yesterday, today, and forever. It shows you God who was and is to come. There's reenactment, realization, anticipation. So it's just these simple little things that we can learn. They're not complicated, but we start to learn the craft of what it means to write songs that are going to reflect God in a more honoring way, and are going to help us to tell them what Jesus is like. And I want to give them the whole picture. I want to give them the whole Christ. I don't want to just give them some watered down, diluted version of who Jesus is. I want to give them the whole picture. And so we're going to have to fight for that. And actually, you're going to have to ask for some help too. Like for me, quite often engaging with theologians and pastors, and hey, where are the missing themes? Or like, challenge me to write a song about something that you think we need to write about. Or let me know some of your wisdom on this thing, because I realize this is too important to just let the musicians do it on their own. Like, actually, we need some help. I know I do. They did a study in America, and the top 50 songs sung in the US church in the last 25 years, and there's almost no mention at all of the fact God is Father, Son, Holy Spirit. It actually has got a little better than it used to be. 10 years ago, it was woeful. And you think, well, it's kind of an important thing about God. It should be showing up on the radar, right? Another one would be the return of Christ, which is such an important part of our faith. It's all over the New Testament. It tells us in the New Testament it's going to affect how you evangelize, affect how alert you are. It's going to affect how much you pray. It's going to affect if you live a holy lifestyle. So it's kind of a big deal, and it needs to be shown up on the radar. And what I realized is that in themes where we don't feel so confident, we just leave them to the side. So Trinitarian nature of God, that sounds complicated. That sounds like higher mathematics version of theology. No thank you. And even if I try and do it, have I got it wrong? We don't feel confident sometimes in those complicated or bigger themes. But we need to. And actually, we are actually all theologians, who, when the Holy Spirit came and He illuminated to you who Jesus was, and you went with Jesus and in Jesus and through Jesus to the Father, you were already a Trinitarian theologian, you just didn't know it, right? And so it's not as complicated as we think, but those things are so important. So a little thing we did, I identified the 25 themes in the Apostles' Creed. So the Apostles' Creed is a piece of liturgy. It's been handed down through the centuries in the church. There's a lot of students in church aren't using it anymore, but it's the first time in history, really, that so many Christians aren't using that. Not in history, but in a long, long time. And what was good about the Apostles' Creed, if you say it in a church service, it guarantees that certain ingredients are in the mix, right? It tells you. So you might not sing about the return of Christ that week, but it was in the creed. Or you might not sing about this aspect of who God is, but no worries, because we say it in the liturgy, right? So we took the most songs in the US church and then compared them to the 25 themes down in the Apostles' Creed. And the ones, there's quite a few of them were doing really well, like the cross and the resurrection. We're doing great. It's really encouraging. But the Trinitarian nature of God, the return of Christ, heaven, there's themes which are really underutilized.